All right, you have a tune here, Underground System, and Passa Passa, right? Side A, 30 minutes. Side B, 30 minutes. Bro, what was up with these long songs? I was just trying to figure this out. Like, why were the songs so long? Was it a publishing thing or is it just a vibe thing?
It's just, it had nothing to do with, it was Fela saying, as I said, everything that this man did was to just tell people, we don't have to do what these Europeans say we should do. Music doesn't have to be 3 minutes because the European attention span is 3 minutes long. That the European cannot sit down and keep a tune for longer than 3 minutes don't mean we have to conform to that. Africans used to play one song for hours and everybody, before the song is over, every single person in the village square will dance to that one song before the song can be over. And we're all entertained by that one song for as long as it took. And why is it that it's only Mozart that can have a song that is an hour long, and compose their symphonies, and these people sit down there, listen to it, and then they complain when you do your song for, is it because they're trying to say you don't have the musical capabilities of Mozart and Bach and these their own greats, Africans can't create the same, For him, everything was pushing against the narrative. And that's why I used to call his music, we call Fela's music Afrobeat. Fela himself called his music classical African sound.
Seriously?
So I'm giving you I'm giving you a nugget right now. I'm telling you, Fela said this is classical African sound. That's what he called his music, And
that ties into what you said, because everything he wanted to, because you said in traditional, if you were playing music in the area, it would be an hour, and he just kept that same vibe straight regardless.
That for him was what it was, that this is the classical sound of Africa.
When we hear about freedom fighters in regards to music, by default people usually go to Bob Marley, right? Do you think that's just a industry thing, why your father doesn't get as much exposure as other people?
No. I think Bob Marley is you have to understand, Bob Marley is kind of he was a fiery individual, but pacifist on his music.
Yeah.
So the system likes that, because you can listen to Bob Marley for 10 years straight and the world will not burn. So that's okay. The system, the system knows that it is fragile. It is those that believe in the system that do not see its fragility. That's one of the things why this global wide domination capitalist thing is living beyond even when it's supposed to. Because it is humble to the extent that it knows it is fragile. It is not, it doesn't deceive itself on that aspect. It knows it is extremely fragile. So whatever it is that can break it, that can shake it, that can cause any harm, to this is delicate self, it doesn't allow. It has no tolerance for such. No tolerance whatsoever, So I feel that's one of the genius of this system, understanding its own fragility.
Said on February 18th, 1977, right? About 1,000 Nigerian soldiers attacked Fela's, how do you say it? Calacuta Republic?
Calacuta Republic, yeah.
Calacuta Republic, right? They burnt down the house, beating Fela and everybody in the compound. Did they throw this man's mother out the window?
Yeah.
They really threw her out the window.
Yeah, and I believe also, because this 1977, this was in the height of the Cold War. And she was Africa's only surviving leading socialist at that time with any kind of real political power and clout. So I think the attack was really 30% on Fela and 70% on her, because Obasanjo was really a CIA stooge. He was really Jimmy Carter boy. And I think that woman was really the target that day, because why would you throw a 70-something-year-old woman? How could she have resisted this?
Hold on, fire. They threw her out the window?
Yeah.
I always thought it was a thing where, like, an embellishment where they were trying to make the
No.
situation. They really threw her out the window.
Threw her out the window.
Continue, though. Sorry to cut you. Continue.
But that's what happened. That's my theory, because why else would a young military man, how could she be resisting that you would need to throw a 70-something-year-old woman out the window if you had not been told by some superiors that you had to do that. You know, I think it was some kind of, I think she was part of whatever was happening that day. Taking her out of the picture had something to do with it.
And she was hospitalized straight through after
Yeah,
that.
yeah, she didn't recover from the injuries. Nah.
And how much did that impact your father? Because he made about 4 songs on that incident alone, right?
Yeah, man, but the song, but then that changed his life, you know, because I don't think Fela ever recovered from his mom, from that. He blamed himself. It really changed his life. He made him more spiritual, and then he started to seek a connection with her, you know. It really impacted him greatly. Can
you elaborate more in regards to the spiritual aspect? Because I know he wasn't dealing with Christianity, Islam, right? No. So what was he dealing with?
You know, African spirituality, you know, and also in terms of connecting to the other world, you know, now, while being alive, but wanting a connection with the ancestors, you know, like it used to be. And the world today is too loud. So you need to begin to isolate yourself. You need to, oh man, my dad went through a lot in his own journey as well because of these incidents. I'm telling you, I can't even begin to explain the things he sacrificed just to find that inner peace again, to find his mom again. His mom was his center, you know. His mom really gave him, she was like his anchor to life. She was it, you know, for him. She was that center of his universe, you know. And the house was her house. That's something everybody did not know as well. You know, the house did not belong to my dad.
That was your mother's house.
It was her house. It was his mother's house that she gave him as a gift, and he lived there. So she comes there regularly to keep him away from all the girls he kept chasing. You know, so she was there on the day this, you know.
All right, you were talking about the grandmother being the core and providing balance, right?
Yeah. Both political and spiritual.
What was her view when he started to have numerous wives? Because he had one wife.
Yeah, first.
Then something, I don't understand. What occurred where he had this idea where he should have numerous wives?
I mean, I think the more he embraced his Africanness, Fela also saw his, you have to understand that in the 60s, 70s Africa, the propaganda against Africanness was huge. We were just coming out of colonialism. We were basically monkeys. We never had any history. We never made anything. You know, the lies that were taught to Africans coming out of this era of our slavery and immense subjugation under whiteness were immense. Nobody wanted anything to do with being African. The best they could do was wear some African garb. You know, nobody wanted to touch anything African. Nobody wanted to even be identified as African, you know. So for Fela, culture became a weapon. To be able to completely embrace that which everybody was so afraid of. To say, see man, this is who we are. There's nothing wrong with it.
So he wanted to embrace every aspect of African culture.
The polygamy of it, the spirituality of it, whatever it is that everybody was frowned, the drip, whatever it is you are also afraid of, you know, he wanted to live it and be like, you can't do this, you know. So for him it was a statement, political statement, as well as a huge cultural statement. But his mother, you know, you have to understand, she was a reverend's wife, regardless of her socialist, Pan-Africanist struggles and political prowess. She was still a reverend's wife. She wasn't having that.
I wanted to touch on more where you said in his journey, because I know you would have to hear your stories from others, but during his journey to find his mother, did he ever connect to his mother while he was still alive during that spiritual journey?
He says he did. And the more I grew up, the more I realized that one has to take that as fact. You know? We must also come off this, our Europeanized concepts that we think we know everything. Professor Jerry Smalls said something very interesting when he said, you know, the arrogance of humanity today that with this our 2,000, barely 2,000-year-old science, we feel we know more than those that observed the world for over 100,000 years, you know, is laughable. You know, if one reads Iliad by Homer, Homer's book, The Iliad, many of the things in there are unbelievable. But he's writing it as a first-hand account that he saw these things. But in our reality today, the book was completely dismissed until Troy was found. So if Troy is real, what else is real? How much did Homer embellish? If we have to believe that this world as is shown to us is all that there is, that means we have to discount over 80% of what Homer says he saw with his own two eyes. Because before Troy was found, you have to understand that Homer was completely discarded as like this. Plato and the rest of them, like, this man must be lying, you know, this world never existed, this, you know. Because this world was, that world that Homer explained was the African world. It's the world that got Socrates killed as well, because the more he studied, because if you remember, Socrates was killed, why? They said he was spreading foreign ideology in Greece, you know.
Have you been able to experience any of the spiritual experiences?
I'm not looking yet.
No.
I'm not looking yet. Because the more I understand, my spirituality right now is just like my homeboy said, Vic Mensa in my tune, like ceremonial, you know. I feel there's so much I have to do, like this world, like if one goes into searching, one has to, like, if you stare into the abyss, it stares back, right?
You have to be totally devout to that.
Yeah.
And you couldn't.
Yeah.
All right, I got you. Cool.
Because I saw my dad in it. It's a full-time thing.